Here we have the OnePlus 2. There's a lot of hype over this phone, mainly because the OnePlus One was so good. The question is, does the OnePlus 2 live up to the hype? When you first get this phone, you notice just how solid the build is and how it looks and feels in your hand. Now, the design and build are two different things, but I happen to like the design a lot. It isn't flashy, but looks like a phone that will get you through anything, and I like that. But the build of the phone is undeniably great. It has an aluminum and magnesium chassis that gives you that solid metal feel, but around back you have a plastic cover, and what's great about this is that you can swap it out with any number of covers that OnePlus sells, so you can go with pretty much any feel and material you want. You get your normal buttons and such and a 5-megapixel camera up front, but there's also two new things. One is a new notification toggle. This is great, I really love this. It lets you control the notifications you receive with a physical toggle, so you can easily switch to Do Not Disturb mode without even looking at the phone. Very similar to what you do on the iPhone, and I absolutely love that feature. Also on the bottom, you have a new port. This is USB Type-C, so there's no micro USB. Now to some this seems like a negative because you don't get things like quick charging, but I think it's a good inclusion. This is the new USB standard, and once every device has it, the world of connecting things will be much easier, so the faster companies implement it, the better I think, and I'll definitely put up with having only one of these cables for now, so that in the future I'll be able to have a phone that works with everything. So overall, the build is excellent. It has a great feel in the hand, and you can tell that it's made with quality materials, and I really like it. Another great thing about the OnePlus 2 is the display. It's still just a 5.5-inch 1080p IPS panel. It's kind of weird saying just a 5.5-inch 1080p IPS panel, but it doesn't sound like it would be great compared to the competition, but the screen proves that resolution and specs don't mean everything. This screen looks really good. It's sharp, has excellent accuracy, and pretty great viewing angles. It washes out a little bit sometimes, but overall looks really good. Below that screen, there's another cool feature, a fingerprint sensor. Now, this is nothing new and it's becoming standard on phones, but the way the OnePlus 2 implements it is pretty nifty. It works just like a home button would, but without actually clicking, so it's kind of like a capacitive button, but with the fingerprint sensor. So this lets you unlock the phone just by placing your finger on the sensor, and you don't actually click anything, you just tap it there, and you can set it to be your home button as well. It's nice and you get options, so if you don't like it as the home button, you can switch to an on-screen variant and still use the fingerprint sensor. Also, you have buttons on the side, and these can be programmed as well to do pretty much anything you want, so navigating this phone can be as personalized as you want and makes using the phone very easy. Around back we have the camera. It's 13 megapixels with optical image stabilization and laser autofocus, so it sounds pretty good, but this was one part of the phone that really disappointed me. I mean, the pictures are sharp and the colors are okay, but for a lot of the shots I took, especially indoors, there's a lot of flaring and the colors look washed out, but the bigger issue is the software itself. The UI is good and it's easy to use, but it's pretty slow. It just takes too long to launch and focus and take a picture, and by the time you do it, a lot of times the moment is gone. Once it's launched and you start taking pictures, it works pretty well, but the initial startup just takes too long. The good thing though is that this can easily be fixed with an update, and once that update comes, this will be a much better experience. Speaking of software, the software is one of the defining features of this phone. The OnePlus 2 is running Oxygen UI, and it's very close to stock Android Lollipop, and it's great. It's smooth and fast and has great customization like a dark mode, customizing the settings tray, customizing the buttons, and there's gestures. The software is also smooth and fast and handles everything like a champ, just like you would expect from a phone from 2015. Underneath, it's running a Snapdragon 810 with 4GB of RAM in the 64GB version, but if you get the 16GB version, it has 3GB of RAM, but I can't imagine it being any worse than this one. The phone gets a bit warm after a while of using it, but that's the only thing I noticed when using this phone. It runs really well, and with some software updates, it'll only get better. Now lastly is the 3300 mAh battery. Sounds big, right? Well, it is, but the performance I found to be just average. It does last throughout the day, but I didn't find it to be anything special, and when coming from the OnePlus One, which had one of the best batteries in a phone ever, this feels kinda like a step backwards. But overall, even with some of these downsides, this phone is pretty great. It's fast, very well built, and has awesome software. And even with the downsides it has, most of them can be fixed with an update, and I've already gotten one since I had the phone, so I'm hopeful that it will get more updates, and it's less than $400, you can't really go wrong. Only issue is that you still need an invitation to get one. It's annoying, but if you can get your hands on one, this is definitely a phone worth considering. I really enjoyed my time with it. So, does it live up to the hype? Maybe not entirely, but the OnePlus 2 is definitely a great phone.